Honestly, I was not a very nice person at times. I was pretty angry. Probably this typical Middle Eastern young man, angry about this angry at the world. Exactly. So my ego was really about just fear. That's the reason why. Because I was in a place that didn't feel home. It's called soccer. It's soccer, passion, and passion is the word that people think about, like, like great passion for something, but it also means suffering. You have to be able to suffer through the soccer part sometimes to get to where you want to be. When I walk on the field, my number one priority is the safety of my players, period.
Welcome to the YoggNation, the Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the YoggNation platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and this podcast explores the themes of bullying, self-awareness, and the power of our inner spirit, including the silent battles we all face. Join me every week as I invite high-profile guests as we explore how adversity shapes us, how gratitude lifts us, and how we can all uncover the inner strength that we all have within ourselves. Join the conversation. I appreciate you listening in.
Well, given the nature of
That's the
competitive sports, especially in soccer/football, as someone who's been both a championship player and a championship coach at such a young age, Malik, how did you keep your ego in check and build that self-awareness needed to lead others? I could imagine it gets complicated.
as a young player, definitely had an ego. Probably was very honestly, I was not a very nice person at times. I was pretty angry. Probably this typical Middle Eastern young man, angry about just angry at the world, just because of the things that had happened up to that. Growing up outside of Houston, I was in a culture of where there wasn't a lot of people like me. In fact, I was the only person next to my twin brother out of 1,200 students that were brown. There may have been
Wow.
20 African Americans, 20 black students in the whole school.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, we had just left, maybe five to less than a decade before that, left Libya as a kindergartner, first grader, because my dad had recently, a couple of years prior, been jailed for 40 days and put into a prison system with 8 to 10 of his friends who were all the greatest minds coming out of school at that time. Some of those guys who just retired were from the UN Security Council. One of them helped form the IBM chip.
Wow. So these were
Another helped
educated men.
at high levels that Gaddafi, dictator at the time, was trying to press into serving him. So they said no. Of course, they were jailed. Nobody knew who they were. And you got to understand, too, my grandfather was a diplomat. We have pictures of him with the Roosevelts and the Vatican and the King of Belgium. So he didn't even know where he was. So that kind of tells you how close knit that became right away and how well he took over. My grandmother was also the first woman to drive in Libya. My first woman to own her own business in Libya. So we had a family of forward-thinking, progressive about the education. I have an aunt who speaks 9 languages and has like 3 doctor's degrees. I kneel down to her because she's only like 4'11", 5'1", but she's just an amazing person. Like she's
That's a lot of sharp tools in the shed.
exactly. So my ego was really about just fear. That's the reason why, because I was in a place that didn't feel home. I still was trying to adapt. I was a chameleon. Basically, I had to change my skin according to what group I was in that time period. And as a first generation American, specifically a proud Texan, in fact, a very proud Libyan Texan, my ego was born from fear and that escaping a dictator. And once released, my dad served his time because basically he was trying to press him to serve for the government. So my dad did 2 years working in the oil fields. And then after things kind of died down, he said, "Yeah, I'm going on a business trip to Houston," and we never returned. So it was one of those stories.
But it's interesting. I mean, going back, you mentioned growing up as a chameleon, and I think that that's a relatable story today. Again, for those that are perhaps down on their luck or trying to not be their authentic self, right? And I think that's what a lot of this podcast aims to do is to provide this really authentic storytelling. And oh my gosh, you've certainly achieved that. But in terms of the wisdom and perspective you have towards a person that may not be exactly in your shoes, but has that fear of whatever is causing them not to be the best version of themselves. So curious, Malik, what would you say to that individual?
First and foremost, the resources we have now, and just in your hand as you pull up your phone, is amazing. In that respect, that you can connect with those who look and feel and are like you much easier. Example, and it took me a long time. Okay, I'm an example of somebody who went from one tribe to another, trying to figure out who I was. Recently, or like not recent, but like maybe 5, 6 years ago, I had an opportunity to join a civic organization called 100 Black Men of Austin. And there's ones all over almost every major city, and 100 Black Men of America as well. Um, and I found my tribe. I found people who were like me in a sense of trying to do the right thing for our community and help bring brown and black people who have, through educational, not through excuses, not through, we're not a political organization, but we are policy oriented and trying to make sure that the right things are done for everybody, including our brown
Yeah,
and black community.
I think you're so right. The resources are out there. It just takes that initial push, that inertia to get started, whether that comes from yourself or a person who deeply cares about the struggles or challenges you're going through to help, to give them guidance and say, hey, check this out. That might be helpful. And I think that,
Yeah, I always feel like when you give back to your community, whichever form that is, uh, you'll be surprised what you get in return.
but kind of going back to, again, the serving, I think you are best at using soccer as a tool to serve others. And how do you measure success in that mission?
Well, after 35 years of coaching, I have now players and people coming back to me with their own kids that I've coached at ages 10, 11, and 12, asking me to coach their kids. So that gives me one aspect saying I didn't screw them up. And that's something that you have to understand for me, I know it's easier to screw up somebody when you're trying to develop them as a person as much as you're trying to help them. So I keep that in mind. I have players who played at the highest levels that I've coached. In fact, one has an academy program right here in town that I coached when he was 14, and we were pretty hard on him when he was 14, not because of his potential and because of what he wanted. And that's the other thing too. What do they want? Uh, how how much do you give? I always tell my players now, and I've said this for almost 20 years now. I will give as much as you give me. So if you want a lot, if you want that big time, and you can't just talk about it because people talk all the time, but you have to show me, like Missouri, the show me state. You have to really show me that you want to that next level. Do you want to play high school, or do you want to play college, or do you want this or that? We're going to do whatever we can to give you the tools and skills and the mental toughness and resilience necessary to make it. But for the most part, there's so many talented people out there never make it, and it's not because they're not talented enough. It's because they don't have the heart or the willingness to suffer. My tagline for Austin
Tell
Soul
me more.
FC,
Willingness to suffer. That's huge.
okay, is called soccer. It's soccer, passion, and passion is a word that people think about like great passion for something, but it also means suffering. You have to be able to suffer through the soccer part sometimes to get to where you want to be. And then the third tagline for us at Austin Soul FC is called cultural intelligence and being understanding of where they're coming from and where they want to get to. Not everybody is going to be the same way. Just because you're a soccer player, if you're a white soccer player from a suburb, it's different, and that's just the truth. You might have, especially here where I live in Austin, where we have lots of resources and we have this very influential, affluent suburbs, like many cities. So if you're in that area, you might not need the same as somebody who comes from another area where, he has to work till 6 o'clock in the afternoon and then go train and then go back and help his dad because he's working the tile business, um, regardless of color. But
Well, kind of going back to the nature of soccer, I mean, it is. I mean, I know that you develop and mold these young men and women, but soccer can be a very cutthroat environment, especially for kids chasing big dreams, what you just mentioned. But have you seen bullying or toxic competition creep into the sport? And how do you step in as a coach to protect the players' confidence and joy?
um, before I answer that, I just want to give two examples of the soccer as a tool of survivors and how I measure it. One other person is Winston Poole, is another player of mine who I coached at 12 that nobody wanted, and now just won a state championship as a coach, and is coach of the year in Austin. Has won so many different awards. And then another player is I coached at the collegiate level named Diego Flores, who was the first graduate in his family. To me, that was super important. Not only was he the first, when I spoke to him recently after not seeing him for like 20 years, he told me the time on the field changed his life. It allowed him to be able to grow. And now he's at a very big firm, and making amazing, he's just a really high level executive. And he came from nowhere. So it's just opening doors and giving people opportunity, I think, is really the key. And if you guide them the right way, I think you'll be surprised what they can do. So, and then the cutthroat environment, that is my biggest concern.
Biggest what? I'm sorry?
My biggest concern as a coach. When I walk on the field, my number one priority is the safety of my players, period. There's nothing else more important to me. So that means everything from field conditions. When I walk the field, if I've never been there and I don't know the field, we'll walk right off. I don't care about winning or losing. If the storms are really prevalent in Central Texas, just like Florida, just like other parts in the South, if there's lightning in the area, back in the day before we had lightning meters and a phone, I would walk off the field if I saw even thunder or lightning in the distance. And people were like, why? It's not even close. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm getting off the field. If you can see it, you can get hit by it. And that's the truth. And that's the science. And it happened actually when my career, when we were first day of soccer for my daughter, Yara, as a 9, 10-year-old, we're going up to the field and lightning hit a fence that rebounded and hit a child. And there was clear skies. It was a lightning storm or thunderstorm about 10 miles away. And that child has never been the same.
Oh my goodness.
So that's how important it is, to be safe. So that's just one, but creating in regards to toxic environments, it's not tolerated for me. I don't care for, I was called Mr. Fix-It for a long time because if there was a problem with a team that they couldn't figure out why, they would give it to me as I was going through the coaching ranks and becoming a director and coaching at the level. And a lot of times I would just go in with an open mind, see what was going on. And a lot of times there was one or two players that were causing it. And if you got the players off, everything became so much better. And even though they were probably the best players, and that was usually the case, unfortunately, I didn't care because that was not the important. The important part was the team, and no one player or one person should be, including the coach, should be that important to the team that cannot be changed.
What about the opposing team, though? What if they have perhaps an arrogant coach or a snot-nosed kid who wants to malicious harm?
I would make it clear to the coach and give them a chance to help them understand what's going on the field, and not in the back in the day when I was young, probably not in a really correct way, but now I would do it privately probably and just let them know what's going on and see what happens. But in the end, if we had to play that team again, I would make it clear that we're not going to tolerate that, and we will walk off the field. Again, this is not about wins or losses. This is about player safety and also having an environment that everybody can be can grow and develop from. And you can't grow and develop from a toxic environment or environment that's negative. So.